Hey everyone, welcome to another video. In this video, we're going to refinish these floors. They're going to be polished with a wet slurry polish and sealed. The sealer will help bring out all the character of the stone. This is Travertine. And the polish helps even out the sheen and really make it look nice. It's not gonna look like a granite countertop. We selected a sheen that is just under that, so we don't want them to be super shiny. But we do want all of the finish to be even. The other thing that polishing does is it knocks down some of the high edges, like right here, for example, and it'll even all that out. Bella's wondering what's going on. We moved some furniture out. You do have to remove all of your furniture so they can come in here. It's a 3-day process. The other thing that I'll show you in this video is how to fix loose tiles. So you can hear when I step, I think you can hear that, where the tile is actually moving around. I've got an area across the house here that's worse, but I'll just show you this because I haven't started drilling it yet. You can tap on these, and so right here, this one, solid, hollow, really hollow. So basically these 4 right here are my problem tiles. This one's already started to crack. And that's the great thing about Travertine is once this is filled and polished, that crack just adds character. Also, there's all of these fill marks because of the way that Travertine is cut and finished. So it's a very, very forgiving stone. And what we're going to do is drill out some of these fill marks. Sometimes we may have to just drill right in the middle of nowhere and we'll create a new fill mark. But we'll drill those out and we'll fill them with epoxy, weight them down, let them cure overnight, and that will make this all solid in here and cause them to stop grinding when you walk on them. Now, could they continue to move? Yes. Could they continue to crack? Yes. But generally what happens is the house moves around in the first couple years, and then as long as there's no real problem with your foundation, it stops moving around. Here's an area over here that I've already started to work on. This was one of the areas where really the tiles are just in the worst shape. They're not sticking very well at all. In fact, this one is kind of coming up right here. So I'm gonna have to weight this down when I put epoxy in it. But I've already drilled holes, you can see, and I've tried to drill them wherever possible, right where a factory fill mark from the place where they were cut was already drilled. Sometimes I had to drill them out here in the middle of nowhere and that'll just create a new mark, but you'll never see any of these little holes once it's filled and polished. Over here is a pretty good example of drilling out one of these fill marks, and it creates an irregular hole to fill later after I've put epoxy in it to secure the tile down. So I'll show you the products that we're going to use and how I do this, and then I'll take you through the whole process of polishing and sealing. It's going to be done professionally. I'm not doing that part myself. The only part I'm doing myself is repairing these tiles that are actually moving around, actually grinding when you walk on them. So stay tuned. Okay, so you can see you can hear how hollow. This one's pretty solid, very, very hollow. Hollow to the point where it's even lifting up. So I'm gonna drill right here. This is a hammer drill, but I don't wanna use the hammer feature because I'm worried it'll crack the tile. You can really tell when you're through to the foundation because it starts pumping up the thin set that they used. That's all there is to it. I think you'll lose track of them quick. There's so many holes. So each hole I drill, I mark with blue tape. And I think we have enough yeah, I'm gonna go all the way out to here. So I'm gonna drill this one, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of these spots that I can choose from. I'm just gonna randomly choose one. See what I mean when it popped at the end there? That's how you know you're through. So what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna get a weight. You can use concrete blocks. I have some dumbbells that I'm going to use to put on these areas here, right here, and here that are lifting. And then we'll mix up some epoxy. I'll show you that, and we'll fill them. All right, I'm using West System 105 epoxy and the slow hardener. I chose the slow hardener because I wanted to give it as much time as possible to reach under the stone and move around and whatever. I love this stuff because once you figure out the right size of these little things, it just one squirt on each, and that's the right mixture. Makes it super simple. I say later in the video that I thin this to about 20%. That's conservative. I thin this stuff probably 50%. I just used regular acetone, and I wanted it to be really, really liquidy. I'd say if it freely flows through the injector, you're probably thin enough. The injector doesn't work so hot if it's not thinned at all. But you really want it to flow under the tile. Logic would say what's happening is it's mixing with the grit and, you know, powdery thin set under the tiles and forming this really solid structure, adhering the tile down. As far as the tiles that we're lifting, this stuff doesn't expand. It doesn't seem to, it's just not thick enough to do anything like that. So if you get the tiles flat enough using weights or concrete blocks, once you inject this stuff, it'll hold. At least that's my experience. At the end of the video, I show you 6 months later. This was actually 6 months ago, before I finally, had the time to make this video. But it totally worked. It held. It's still holding, and you can't even see any of these holes or any of the jacked up grout lines. You can't tell. Anyway, as far as filling it, I really just filled it until I was mentally done, or the hole that I drilled or the area was actually overflowing. I'll show you a detail in a minute here in the video, up close, of how deep to drill and then the actual filling process. But this is all I did. I just worked my way through the whole house over the course of probably 5 or 6 nights, and got it all done. We were kind of on a timeline because we had the floor guys scheduled, so nothing like deadline to get things done. So in a second you'll see a puff. That puff is breaking through the bottom of the stone and hitting the foundation. There, see? That's all there is to it. So I'll drill it here. Some of these are really hard to drill, some just drill really easy. There. It's really obvious when you punch through. I'll drill this one right here. Then we'll vacuum out the dust. I'll mix up some epoxy and we'll fill it with epoxy. So this over here, you can see it's totally solid now. Doesn't make any noise. All of this has been filled with epoxy. I put quite a bit, I'd say half that container put in here, and it doesn't, I mean, it totally worked. It's totally quiet, solid. So I'm gonna go ahead and fill the rest of these, and then I've got some over here to do. These are actually pretty bad. This one here is pretty bad. So those other ones I don't need the weights for, but this one, because it's kind of pushing up a little bit, I'm gonna weight it down before I start putting epoxy in it. So this is a good example of how these are gonna look natural. This one's round for the most part, which is fine. This one has a chip on the side here. This one's really chipped out. So that's gonna look unique. And then this one is almost chipped like a triangle. So when they get filled, you're never gonna notice that there were 4 holes here. So I already started filling these, but this one is a good example of what happens. So this one, you squirt a little resin in there, and you'll see it'll slowly disappear. This one also, I guess all of them are slowly disappearing, except this one. So this one, you know, I try to work the end of the needle in there to open up open up like a cavity for the resin to get in. See how this one's already sunk? So I'm gonna fill this one back in, and then this one's still full. This one's got a little bubble in it. Sometimes you can like kind of help it. But sometimes they just don't, you know, it only goes into the hole that you drilled. So I'm just gonna wipe this off and kind of push my finger down into it a little bit, because when they fill this, the company that's coming out to do the floors, they need something to fill. And if it's totally filled with epoxy, that would be no good. So this one I'm filling for the first time. Wow, that took a lot. Yeah, see how much this is taking? I bet it takes almost this whole syringe the way it's going in there. Well, I guess if you really wanted to get, be really, really sure that they're not gonna creak and grind and move around, you could keep drilling holes until you find a pocket like this one. There, see, now it's kind of filling up. Maybe not. So this is like spreading out, and who knows, it could be following a grout, not a grout line, but where you put the thin set down, it could be following a line underneath more of these. I don't really know what's going on, but these aren't going anywhere. This one a little bit. But anyway, that's 2 syringes in there. That's plenty. And then we'll just wipe the surface off. That's it, all there is to it. So here's where I can pump some of this epoxy down into where the grout's missing. The company that's gonna do the floors will repair that. But I can, sometimes it takes a lot. Yeah, this will be good. So that'll just keep oozing down in there. And this is right in a doorway. Oh yeah, that one's taking a lot. There we go. This is right in a doorway, so it gets a lot of traffic. So just like that area, the first area that we did in the video, this one isn't quite as bad, but pretty bad. So my bet is the crack in the foundation that is causing these to be like this is just extends right through this room. I walked the house just multiple times trying to feel for any spot that was loose or any place that needed more epoxy, because obviously once the floors are sealed, I don't want to do this again. So it was just continuously checking and trying to make sure that I wasn't missing any spots and that I did put enough epoxy in the areas that needed it to get everything really solid. Overnight was all it took. In the morning, it's as cured as it's going to be cured, and so you know whether to add or not. Here's the rest of the resin that I didn't use. I always like to keep it and make sure that it gets hard. That way I know what's happening under the tile. I put it on a plate because it gets hot, and I'm always worried it's going to discolor something, or I doubt it would ever start a fire, but anyway, be sure to keep your extra so you know what's happening. The floor company has finally arrived. The first thing they did was tape everything, and then I actually taped up the drapes. You just need everything off the floor. So we have all the furniture out. That was fun. It's either in the garage or in our bedroom. You have to like climb over furniture to get to our bed. And they have, they're protecting from two things. One is the machine bumping into stuff, and the other is the splatter of the slurry. It really doesn't splatter much. I mean, I was really surprised at just how little mess there is. But they take this precaution, which is great, to tape everything up. And the first thing they do is they clean. They use this pressure washer looking vacuum thing. It produces just water, I think, and they just go over the entire floor with it. And I have to admit, it makes a big difference. I mean, there might be some kind of cleaner in there, but they have this truck outside, and you know, if you've ever had carpets cleaned or something, it's probably the same process. But they clean everything, completely remove all the surface dirt, dust, whatever. But this is step one, and they do it in phases. I really don't know how they would do it. I guess if you just couldn't remove all your furniture, then they would charge you more to come back multiple days and put all your furniture in one room, and then they would do one room start to finish and then move on to another room. So that is actually the cleaner that they use. And they put these yellow things in the corners so they don't accidentally bump into stuff. It's really fantastic. I mean, they didn't damage anything. And I think it took them 3 days.
With a very coarse pad. So basically what this is doing, this is basically polishing out all of the small hairline scratches, all of basically keeping it all uniform throughout. So once this gets removed, you're going to have a really good pop on it.
If you couldn't understand what he was saying in the video, basically this slurry is like a base slurry. It does have something in it to clean the stone chemically, and then it also has a diamond grit in it. So they use this really coarse wool pad, and they grind this slurry over the floor, and it does two things. It polishes it, right, because of the diamond in the slurry, and it bleaches it somehow because of whatever chemical property there is to this stuff. Once they're done with this, and I bet they used this vacuum thing like 4 times through the whole process. Took 3 days. What they do here is they spray this acidic solution over the floor to neutralize the slurry. And this stuff actually smells. The slurry doesn't smell at all, but this stuff has an acidic smell to it. And it's not enough to make you want to leave your house, and it does dissipate pretty rapidly, so we slept in the house every night. We did not have to relocate or anything. We moved all the furniture out, which was really kind of ridiculous. We were climbing over furniture to get to bed. It was crazy, but it really sped the process along. I suppose you could pay them more to come back or to do this over a longer period of time and just move all your furniture from one room to another. They didn't really want to do that, and I didn't really want to do that, so that's why we went through the trouble of just getting all the furniture out. But anyway, once they let this solution sit for a little while, then they vacuum it off again. Here's him filling these areas. This is kind of a very, very thin, if you've used sanded grout as opposed to unsanded grout, this would be many steps finer than that. It's a very, very fine powder mixed with water. And if you wanted to really go crazy, you could probably get maybe 3 colors, you know, a tan, more of a white color, and then maybe a darker color, maybe 3 shades, and fill holes that are near each other with 3 different shades. I guess you could do that. We did not do that, and it came out fine. But if you were really anal, you know, more so than I am, you could certainly do that. But the stuff is readily available. It dries hard as a rock, and you can use it to literally fill anything, any little imperfection. This is what you can expect after day 1. They did half the house and the bathroom with the abrasive material, and then they vacuumed it twice. The first time they just vacuumed all the slurry off, and then the second time they put down a neutralizer and then vacuumed that off. They've gone through and they've filled all of the little holes that I made to cause it, you know, to fill it up with epoxy. You can see all the fill marks right here. It's like a hazy look. Tomorrow they'll be back to do step 2 on that area, and then I think step 1 and 2 in this area. So far looking good. Really coming out nice. Here's a close-up of that pad that they use. It looks like wool, really. It's very, very coarse. And evidently there is skill involved in this. I'm glad this wasn't their first job, because what he was explaining to me is that you really have to go over the floor evenly. It needs the same amount of polish throughout, or you'll end up with these spots that are shinier than others. Anyway, this has all been sealed. So that whole area, you can see if you look carefully, it looks like kind of oil on water. You can see right here where the sealer is soaking in differently, you know, in different areas.
Come here.
And all they do is squirt it on with that squirt bottle that's on his pocket right there, and wipe it in as evenly as they can get it. And then they let it sit for a while. They do use a pretty generous amount, and it does smell. It is some kind of chemical. And they let it sit after they've spread it out as even as they can get it. And then they do a final buff with a different pad and no solution. So it's almost like they're varnishing or heating up the sealer to get it to kind of glass over evenly. That would be, you know, my unexpert opinion of what is happening. I only shot a really quick video here, so I slowed it down when he's polishing, but this right here is the final step. They go over it with this smoother pad, and that's what really produces the shine. And then, believe it or not, when they left, we were kind of like not overly thrilled, but over 3 or 4 days, it gets shinier and shinier. So here's just some pictures of the next day. And then at the end of the video, I'll show you literally 6 months later, and it just keeps getting shinier. It's really incredible. We do use a special cleaner on it. I'll show you a bottle of that at the end. But we're so thrilled. We're just so thrilled with how it ended up. This is what he recommended we use. He actually provided us with this Stone and Tile Cleaner. Takes just a tiny little bit, and evidently this will not affect the sealer in any way. Here we are, 6 months later. I've got every light on in the house here, so I wanted to try to light up the floor as much as possible. It's about, I don't know, 10 o'clock on Saturday, but it's amazing. You're a good girl. And it keeps getting shinier. I can't believe it. 6 months of traffic on this floor. Can't see any of the fill marks. Look at that shine. Here's where we drilled those 4 holes here and here. You can't find them. Let me try to find, you know, they're in the corners. So here's one right there in the middle of that fill mark. I can't find them. It should be easier to find because there's, oh, here we go. So here's one right here. Here's one where this crack was, if you remember from the video before. Here's one there, and here's one here. So there's the 4 that I used to get this solid. And you can hear me stepping on it. Doesn't make any sound at all. And you cannot tell. It's just all shiny. Looks amazing. Here's that area where there was over 50 holes easily, plus all that grout that we had to fill. It's perfect. Here's the area. I've got a bathroom here in between my office and the rest of the house. And this area around the bathroom, around the toilet here on the wall was really bad. This is where he was sitting on the floor filling it. It's totally solid. No grinding, no hollow sounding tiles. Just fantastic. Anyway, if you like my videos and you want me to keep going, well, actually, whether you want me to or not, I'm gonna probably keep going. But please leave a comment or smash that like button and subscribe. I post new videos all the time. They're totally random, you know. If you follow my channel, I really just post stuff that I do and hope that you will value it in some way. But I love the comments. I try to apply to every comment, so please leave a comment, and I look forward to hearing what you think of this project. As always, thanks for watching.